Thank you, everybody. So I'd like to start off today by offering you guys all a piece of cake. Problem is, I'm not much of a baker at all. Matter of fact, in order to make this cake, I had to ask everybody how to make a cake, and I had to Google how to make a cake. And I really wasn't sure what I was going to do, and lo and behold, I produced this. So it looks pretty good, but it's a little bit bland. And as we go ahead and we take a look at this cake, I think this is the perfect metaphor for our education system. Problem is, if I were to invite you guys over and actually offer this cake, it'd be one of three things that would happen. First, people who love cake, doesn't matter what kind of cake it is, they'd be like, slice it up and serve it up, I want some cake. The second one would be, well, I don't want to be rude, so I'm going to take a little bit of this cake, and I'm going to eat a bit of it, and I'm going to pretend that I'm full, and, I'll push that plate away. Then the third one would be, not going to eat that cake, I'm full already, thanks very much. Now, the cool part about education is that I used to love it. That's me, 4 years old, waiting 25 minutes for my bus for junior kindergarten. And I would not get off that chair. And as I looked and as I waited, I just could not wait to get to that school. If Barney the Dinosaur, Sesame Street taught me anything, is that school was going to be the most amazing place ever. Problem was, they didn't teach me how to ride the bus. So I got to the wrong school, I cried a lot, and I accidentally started my dad's baseball card addiction. But when that was all said and done, I actually got to school. And I'm going to tell you that school was amazing for me. I got to play, I got to run around, I made friends. School was one of the best things that I've ever had happen to me. Problem was, it didn't stay that way. Now, I'm not showing you my school photos for every year of my school to see that I've actually not changed my hairstyle for my entire life. But I'm actually showing it to you because you can actually see in that photograph set when I really dropped off my interest of education. It's actually right there in grade 6. You can see I go from smiling to bleh. And that was because that's when school started to get boring. That's when I started to realize that the play and the emphasis of creating and doing was gone, and it was more about the piling on of work. It was more about do this and do this and do this, but I couldn't figure out why I was doing it. It didn't make any sense to me. I wasn't explained, well, how is this relevant to my life? Those common questions. Why am I doing this? Why do I need to learn about this? And it got really, really boring. And I fell out of love with school. And I think that that's kind of a heartbreaking story that we go through in education all the time. We start off so excited, and we eventually lose our interest. So I started getting into sports. Sports were my way to get out all of the pent-up energy that I actually never got to get out in that classroom. I was always the fidgety, why are you moving around in class? Sit down, be quiet. And I hated that. That is not who I was as a person. The reason I use this photo is because 2 weeks after this photo was taken was one of the biggest moments of my life. I tore my ACL. How fantastic. Now this was a problem because 2 weeks as I tore my ACL was the day that the scouts were coming to potentially sign a pre-recruitment offer for football. So I had a career goal of being a professional athlete, and in a matter of one split-second decision, it was gone. That's when I started working pretty closely with this teacher. This is one of the icons to me in my educational career. His name is Gilbert Briscoe. Ironically enough, he actually grew up with my mom. They were neighbors. He ended up being my phys ed teacher. And after I ended up injuring myself, I was in his phys ed class, and he told me, you know what, I'm not going to have you do all the meaningless things that we have injured people do in phys ed. I'm going to allow the office to drop you out of this course, and I want you to go into peer mentoring. I said, why? I don't know anything about peer mentoring. And he looked at me and said, you're really good with people, and your coach always praise you, and they always say that you are a great leader. And those are qualities that we can see in an educator. So I want you to go ahead and I want you to get into peer tutoring. So I decided, why not? I'm going to get into peer tutoring. And all of a sudden I was peer tutoring at 17 years old, computer science and JavaScript coding. And all of a sudden, I thought what he was trying to teach me was that learning is fun. But I realized that this guy was pretty crafty. And as I went on further in my career, I realized that he was actually setting me up for something. So as I got into coaching, I apparently got pretty good at it. I was known for coaching soccer, and I was known for coaching football. And as I got deeper and deeper into this, people started to recognize my name, and they started saying, oh, you're the coach that does the fun stuff. You don't yell at kids, you're always about positivity, you're always about praise. And I said, I guess so. I have no idea what people are saying about me. And it turns out that what he did, this Mr. Briscoe, this phys ed teacher did, was tell me that I was good at bringing fun into learning. it's not that learning was fun, it's that I had apparently this ability to bring fun into learning. So why does that bring me here? It brings me here because of this sentence. I decided to become a teacher. And when I decided to become a teacher, I went into my first practicum, and it was grade 10 English. And the grade 10 English at this time period when I was there was learning about Shakespeare, and they could care less about it. And they were like, all right, go ahead, make them like Shakespeare. And I was like, okay. So I started thinking about the abilities of play. And I started playing games, and I started pulling out information from these people, these students, about why they did not like Shakespeare. And it turned out to be pretty valuable because then I could tailor my lessons to make it relevant to them. The problem is, and this is one of my more iconic moments in my life, is my host teacher at the end of my practicum sat me down and told me that I would fail as a teacher. And she told me I would fail as a teacher because there is, and I quote, no room for fun in education. To where I said, pardon? And she said, when you play, you do not learn. And I said, one of the most common arguments we always get, play is the antithesis of learning. And it couldn't be any more wrong. Play is one of the most innate things that we do. It's in animals, it's in humans, it's in all of us. We love to play, and it fuels our passion for things that we're interested in. So the best thing you can do to me is tell me that I can't do something. So in that moment was the first light bulb of my career where I said, you know what? I'm going to dedicate my entire teaching career to prove this person wrong and make education fun. And that's exactly what my goal was. So I moved on forward. I even had a fun graduation photo where I did not want to shake the dean's hand. I made him do the thumbs up with me because that wasn't me. I am not a polite shake your hand. I'm always about big and running around. And that's something I wanted to emphasize in my classroom. Be yourself when you're with me. So I graduated, and I had a goal. When kids arrive at school on day 1, they look like this. But on day 2, they look like this. So the problem is, I wanted to make sure that any class I taught did not end up like this. Because, as John Dewey said, a completely internationally recognized education reformer, in 1916, warned us that if we teach today as we taught yesterday, then we will in fact rob students of tomorrow. So my goal was to not do everything that was taught to me in education school. My goal was to do probably the complete opposite of that. So I went in, and it's almost as if God was listening to me, and he said, you know what, I'm going to let you put your money where your mouth is. I got hired to move from Sudbury, Ontario, where I grew up, to Calgary, Alberta, and my first placement, or my first job, was to revamp a physical education program where kids didn't find it relevant. In kindergarten to grade 4. What kindergarten to grade 4 kid does not find phys ed relevant? So it was almost like I was being told, you know what, you want an emphasis on play? Here you go. So I came in with tons of awesome ideas. And this is light bulb number 2 in my career. I realized that risk-taking and showing kids that it's okay to fail as the teacher stems growth and creativity in them because they realize that if you're going to go put yourself on a limb, then they'll do the same thing. So even though my ideas look like this in my head, they often came out like this. And the problem is I presented the ideas here, and the kids maybe didn't gravitate towards them as much as I wanted to. But I never let it get me down. I would talk to kids. This is the third thing that I realized, the third light bulb moment, was that I need to talk to my students more. So I would make a huge emphasis on my daily teaching to talk to kids. What was good about that? Why did you like that? What was great about that lesson? And they would tell me, and then I would ask, you know what? You can go ahead and you can tell me what was not good about it. And hey, you ask a 5-year-old what they don't like, you're going to find out. So I found out right away where I needed to change. And this ended up being pretty cool because it ended up getting me recognized as one of the top 20 teachers in Alberta when I was 27. And that was a huge moment for me because this was something I never thought that I would do. Because in the back of my mind was that message from first year practicum, you are not going to be a successful teacher. As a matter of fact, those words were, you will fail. So all of a sudden, my career took a very drastic turn. I went from kindergarten to grade 4, and we had a bit of a family medical emergency that had us move up to Sherwood Park. And now that I'm in Sherwood Park, I find a job in a grade 8 classroom teaching science, where I'm once again met with these kids. And as these kids hung their head on the desk and looked bored and disinterested in everything I had to say, I knew right then and there that I had to take everything that I did in that kindergarten to grade 4 phys ed class, and I had to bring it into this grade 8 classroom. I had to make the learning of science, which is what I was teaching, fun. So I had a colleague named David Head who emailed me a video about what is known as gamification. And this was a pretty cool concept. It was nothing more than a little 4-minute video clip that said, school would be a lot more fun if we designed it like a game. Didn't really give you a lot about how to do it or anything, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. So, when you do gamification, what you are actually doing is you're taking all the principles of game design, what makes games fun and addictive and replayable, and you're putting those elements into something that's not a game. Now this is common in healthcare, this is common in business, but it's not too common in education. It's starting to rise a bit, and I'm trying to push this forward because this has been a game changer in my classroom. I turned my science program into what I call the Fight for Scientia, a gigantic year-long game where students take on roles as barbarians and mages and all these characters battling the evil Minotaur king who took over our kingdom and found these things. And I picked every curricular goal I wanted to hit and wrote a story about it. So as kids progress through my classroom, the question of, well, how do I use this in real life is met because they encounter people who are giving them quests based on the actual and practical knowledge that they have just learned in the lessons. And this story became really captivating for kids. Then I started adding monsters and health meters and game cards and perks. I allowed kids to lie, cheat, and steal in my classroom as long as it fit the context of the game. And all of a sudden, it really started to take off. And I was like, I might be onto something. Then I realized that kids struggled with punctuality and with following through on direction. So I hired kids. These are all employees of Scientia. I pay them gold pieces, and they love these gold pieces. They clean my class, by the way, great thing to do. So they clean my class, they stock my shelves in my store, they go ahead and they decorate the room. So I actually don't even have furniture in my room. They sit on the ground like you would in a medieval time. If you want furniture, you have to build it. I had a group of 19 kids who were obsessive with Grey's Anatomy, and they wanted to be doctors. So over the Christmas break, I decided to gamify my biology component by building them a human corpse, filling it with organs, and having them become the Heeb's Anatomy team, and they perform a regular game where they have to perform an autopsy to determine the cause of death. I built a gigantic board game in the center of my room, I guess off left. And the kids go there to submit work, and then we battle back and forth. They try to defeat me in a giant board game that I've created. This has produced high quality work, creative work, because the kids have immediate incentive and feedback in which to do well. And then I had to add in fun. So we play all kinds of traditional board games as part of our typical review, in a manner that I hope that prepares kids to study. Every one of these games occurs before a test, and every single time my test grades have improved. My idea was to take the boring plain cake that we often share as educators and to make it something that kids believed education could not be. Regularly, I get emails from parents who are saying, I don't know what you're doing in that room, but all my kid talks about is science, and he knows it. She knows it. Her grades are up 20%. And I say she's just having fun. And it's something that I don't think I will ever teach in any other way, shape, or form. Someone said, why don't you submit your idea to the World Gamification Conference? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And last year, beating companies like Classcraft, which has over 500,000 subscribers and is a paid service, my classroom was selected as the top gamified classroom on planet Earth. And the cool part about this is that each one of those kids in that photo has an imprint on that game. They came up with ideas. They came up with strategies. And they have this in their back pocket for the rest of their lives. They were part of changing a fabric of education in our school. And that's something that kids still come back and they're like, have you done this? Have you done this? They love it. And sometimes the kids came up with ideas that didn't work, like a jail. And the kids were jail guards. And that maybe as a teacher was not the most forward thinking I could have been. But you work around it and you tweak it up. On average, this whole idea and concept of gamification has produced an average of 7 to 12% increase from grade 7 to grade 8 when I see them. Last year, I had almost 75% out of the 98 students that I taught reach honors, which is 80% plus in my grade 8 science program. And at the end of their final exam, I had students write me a report card, because I believe as an educator, if you can write a report card for a student, they can sure as heck write a report card for you. So they wrote me a report card, and every single one of them, all 98 students, said, you better continue gamification because it is something that I will never forget. So what's my dream of education? What's the big idea? Big idea is that I hope one day that in all classrooms, kids can have their cake and eat it too.